list, which is sort of a site for homeowners, home services website. And they said the most frequent things that are broken when families move from one house to another are things like drinking glasses, plates, artwork, lampstands, mirrors, picture frames, and stereos. These things can break easily. Your phones can break easily. But there's something else that can break very easily, and that is a human being. People can break. Life can seem to come in and crush a person's very existence. If you're a member of the human race, and I assume that includes all of you, then you have had your heart broken at least once in your life. Several years ago, a newspaper in Nashville decided to do a series of articles on people in the community who had broken hearts. So they asked counselors and clergymen to give the names of people they knew in Nashville that had a broken heart, because the newspaper wanted to interview them for this series of articles. One pastor read the letter and decided to send the newspaper the entire phone directory for the city of Nashville, as if to say every single person in the Nashville area at one time or another has had a broken heart. It's quite common, actually. People all over the world experience it. Doesn't matter what country you're in. Life can sometimes break you. Now, a research group decided to do a little comparison between Americans and our counterparts across the pond over in the UK, over in England. And they made this discovery, and I'm quoting, Americans have more broken hearts than people in the United Kingdom by a margin of 18%. Americans are more likely to have their hearts broken several times than those across the pond. Now, I don't know exactly why that is. I don't know why Americans would tend to have more broken hearts than people anywhere else. But I do know this. Jesus said that he came to heal the brokenhearted. And that could be you tonight. What does it mean to be brokenhearted? It's a very interesting word. The word brokenhearted in the original language means to rub something together. It's like friction. It's like if you're out in the woods and you rub two sticks together to start a fire. As you rub those sticks together, friction develops and little pieces of wood can break off and fragment. And when life rubs against you so hard, sometimes you can break into little pieces. In the New Testament, there's a story about a man in the Gospel of John, chapter 5. I'm going to read just a few verses to you. In John chapter 5, it's a story about a man who was broken by life. What's weird is this. He was surrounded by people. People were all around him. And yet he felt utterly alone. That might be you tonight. Here we are at the stadium filled with people, but there you are sitting, experiencing things that only you've experienced, and you feel isolated, you feel alienated, you feel alone, you feel broken. I found an article that said 1 in 10 people feel that they do not have a single close friend. The article went on to say this can lead to serious health issues. And the article said that social media often plays into this. That the lonelier a person feels, they will often spend more time looking at social media. And that only makes the cycle get worse, because they look at the Instagram posts or they look at the tweets, and it seems like everybody else in the world is having fun without them. They feel excluded. Some of you might feel broken because your marriage is not working out like you thought it should work out. You're experiencing hardship in that. Others of you are onto a second or third marriage and you're finding out none of them work. Life seems to be a mess. Or you have been a victim of abuse. Or you've been abandoned. Or maybe you have a physical ailment that you've been suffering from. or you recently got into an accident that you're recovering from. And probably many of you here tonight have been betrayed by somebody that you love as a close friend. I remember when I was young, my dad used to pretend to quote the Bible. I was raised in a religious home, though I wasn't truly born again, but my dad used to say this. He said, "You know, son, God helps those who help themselves." He liked to say that a lot. In fact, he even said, "You know, son, the Bible says God helps those who help themselves." And I discovered after reading the Bible does not say God helps those who help themselves. Rather, the Bible points out that God helps those who can't help themselves. God helps the helpless. And you might feel helpless tonight. You might feel so hopeless, and you're wondering, how could that ever change? In John chapter 5, we have this man who could not help himself. Here's the story. Afterward, Jesus returned to Jerusalem for one of the Jewish holy days. This is John chapter 5. Inside the city, near the sheep gate, was a pool of Bethesda that had 5 covered porches. Crowds of sick people, blind, lame, or paralyzed, lay on these porches. One of the men lying there had been sick for 38 years. When Jesus saw him and knew how long he had been ill, he asked him, "Would you like to get well?" "I can't, sir," the man said, "for I have no one to help me into that pool when the water is stirred up. While I am trying to get in there, someone else always gets in ahead of me." Jesus told him, "Stand up, pick up your sleeping mat, and walk." Instantly the man was healed. He rolled up the mat and began walking. But this miracle happened on the Sabbath day, and so the Jewish leaders objected. They said to the man who was cured, "You can't work on the Sabbath. It's illegal to carry that sleeping mat." He replied, "The man who healed me said to me, 'Pick up your sleeping mat and walk.'" "Who said such a thing as that?" they demanded. The man didn't know, for Jesus had disappeared into the crowd. But afterward, Jesus found him in the temple and told him, "Now that you are well, stop sinning, or something even worse may happen to you." Now, the man in this story that I just read was broken. He was broken in 3 ways. First of all, he was broken by circumstances. It says in the story that he was sick. It indicates a debilitating illness. Now, what was he sick of? Well, the story doesn't tell us. We're not told what his specific disease was, but it would seem that he was paralyzed, or he couldn't move very well. He couldn't move freely. He was in a weakened condition. Those who have chronic illness, chronic pain, a debilitating disease, feel so utterly alone. It's an isolating experience. Physical limitations come with that. You can't do what you used to do. You find that friends don't invite you over anymore. We're not told how old this man was. He could have been much older than 38. That's just how long he was there at the gate. But he was probably much older, and we don't know if he was single or if he was married. He could have been married, even married at one time. And his wife perhaps left him because he was in this condition. According to the stats, the statistics, 75% of marriages where one of the spouses has a chronic illness will end in divorce. 75%. What would happen? Well, the spouse who is not sick gets freaked out. They are frightened at the prospect of long-term care. That kind of a commitment is just so overwhelming that they run away. And circumstances can rub against a person's life and they feel broken, they feel crushed like this man. Years ago, a missionary named E. Stanley Jones spoke about a pastor who was going to do a series of messages entitled, How to Avoid a Nervous Breakdown. But before he could finish preaching the series on how to avoid a nervous breakdown, that pastor had a nervous breakdown. You might be broken by circumstances.